your new best friends. You're gonna find a book you'll love to pieces. The girl behind the counter recommends dollar books and shelves of graphic novels. Titles old and new, you'll find them all. With action figures, board games, toys, and models to add to your new Comic Wednesday haul. The comic book store, the comic book store. 'Cause that's where the books live, but it's also much more. It's the heart of the art form that we all adore. Your friendly neighborhood comic book store.
Good evening. You are listening to Source Material Live. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight we are discussing Black Panther, The Client, written by Christopher Priest. And joining me to cover this is actually his idea. He made me do it. Ladies and gentlemen, Evan Bevins. How do you do, sir?
I'm doing great. I've been waiting 22 years to talk about this with somebody that's also read it.
And joining us also, well, I'm glad to have you back on the show, Evan.
Thank you.
Joining us also, making his return to the show after a brief hiatus, it's Chris Sheehan from the Cosmic Treadmill in X-Lapsed. How do you do, sir?
Hey, how are you? Very happy to be talking about a book that I'm passionate about in some way. I feel like it's been a little while. What would be your Star Wars and the death of Adam Strange and all that stuff. So it's nice to have the Black Panther to speak of today. The only volume of the Black Panther I give half a damn about.
Yes, I remember we were having a conversation not that long ago when we were coming up with ideas for shows, and he was like, how about we cover good books? I was like,
yes.
Ow, that hurts. All right, let me go over to you first, Evan. You, a while back, we were talking about this offline, but a while back you kind of sent me a wish list of comics you wanted to talk about on Source Material at some point. And I went, none of these fit into nothing, so I don't know when we're going to do any of these. They didn't quite fit into the synergy, but I said, you know what, no, I'm going to make time for these. There was a lot that on that list that I was interested in, and I thought would be fun to talk about. It was just trying to figure out where in all the synchronicity we were going to try to get these done. And we happen to have an open week here after many things on the schedule fell off the schedule for one reason or another, and thus we had an open week to talk about stuff. And I thought, well, what better time to do this than now? Let's talk about The Client, Black Panther, The Client by Christopher Priest. And why was this on your short list? What about were you reading this iteration of Black Panther? Did you come back to it after it had gotten some acclaim? Are you just a big Black Panther fan? What's your deal?
Well, I like to say I liked Black Panther before it was cool, but not till this volume. I was caught up in all the Marvel Knights hype back in 1998. Actually, they were making a big deal of it at not Wizard World Chicago. It was Chicago Comic-Con before it was Wizard World. And somewhere I've got a Marvel Knights preview book signed by Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti. This was one of the premiere issues, and Daredevil was the one I was excited about because I'm one of those comic fans who gets excited when Hollywood and mainstream people act like they're one of us. Like Kevin Smith is, but so I was excited about that, and but I kept seeing all this advertisements for Black Panther. Usually, I'm a writer guy. I mean, I appreciate art, but I'm there more for the story. I can take a good story with crappy art better than I can a beautifully drawn comic with a terrible story. But this cover of Black Panther #1 that Mark Teixeira did. Not the Yankees' first baseman, mind you, but this cover just jumped out to me, and I'm like, I've been reading about all this Marvel Knights stuff. I'd never read anything other than Black Panther, showing up, being, the Avenger from Africa is really all I knew about him. And so I open it up, and there's a scrawny white guy with no pants crouched on top of a toilet trying to shoot a rat, and I'm like, this is different. And I stayed for all 60-some issues, have been a fan of the character and Christopher Priest ever since.
Oh, so you finished the whole run, huh?
Oh yeah, I've got every issue.
So how about you, Mr. Sheehan? I asked you to be on this show, and you were pretty excited about it. You're like, oh, this is a good one. Were you reading these contemporaneously, or did you go back? Okay.
No, I was the Marvel zombie at the time, so I was buying just about everything. And there was another book that Mr. Priest was getting a little bit of acclaim for. No pun intended, actually. It's from Acclaim Comics, yeah. Quantum and Woody, which is a fantastic buddy series. Don't read any of the new stuff because that's kind of bad. But the original Christopher Priest run was just solid gold. And finding out that he was going to be taking on one of these Marvel Knights books, it was like, okay, that's a no-brainer. And the Marvel Knights imprint in the first place was such an exciting time because post-bankruptcy Marvel was just a very, very exciting place. It's almost like they were kind of like begging forgiveness of the people who left. And I was one of the people that left in 95 and didn't come back till, way later in 96 or 97. But it was such an interesting time, such a creative time. We got these off-the-wall concepts. I mean, Deadpool got his own series. Kazar came back in like a fish-out-of-water series. We had the Thunderbolts, Maverick, Quicksilver, all these just odd characters. Alpha Flight got another shot. And then they gave these 4 books over to Jimmy and Joey, for the Event Comics guys to revitalize, including, I don't know if we would have called him an A-lister at the time in Daredevil, but he was certainly an A-lister after this. A character like Black Panther, who was never able to sustain a long run. The Inhumans that suck, but we don't need to talk about them. And then the Angelic Punisher.
That was your favorite.
Oh boy, you know me and the Inhumans. They're just we're peanut butter and jelly. But and then we also had the Dead Punisher, which was something. But the entire tone and tenor of this launch was just, you couldn't avoid it. If you were reading any of the fan press, any websites in the primitive internet, Wizard Magazine, the comic shops themselves, these 4 books were hot. And for the first time in a long time, Marvel had books that were like critically hot, not just sales wise, but like people were like, ooh, you got to read these books. The same kind of stuff that we would usually, keep for the Vertigo books. It's like, oh, you got to check out Preacher or Sandman. It's like, no, you got to check out Daredevil and Black Panther. And it's like, what world is this? But I bought them. This one, Black Panther, just like Evan, I came in for Daredevil. Daredevil was the one that I was most excited for. But that came out so infrequently while Kevin Smith was writing it. Black Panther really was shouldering the Marvel Knights imprint for the 10 or 12 issues that it remained in the Knights imprint before they moved it to the mainstream Marvel universe, or outside of the event guys' purview. So Black Panther really held the load while Kevin Smith was busy Kevin Smithing around and not writing comic books. But like Evan, I collected the whole run. When it changed into the Crew, that was pretty bad. I didn't care for that very much.
I got all 7 issues of that too.
Oh yeah, I've got it too. It's just not great. but it is a wonderful series. And again, the only Black Panther series I've ever cared about. Focus on character rather than, hey guys, isn't Wakanda really cool? Like every Black Panther story is now. It's like, hey, Vibranium. It's like, no, tell me about characters. Give me a story about these people that I want to care about. But this run, fantastic stuff. Christopher Priest is a writer we didn't deserve at the time because he was just that damn good.
So I'm going to ask you a question to which the answer is going to be no. I already know that, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Okay, Sheehan?
Did I see the movie? No.
Perfect. So I'm reading The Client, Evan, at your suggestion so that we can talk about it tonight. And there's a lot of... It's the Black Panther book, but it's Everett K. Ross's story. And there's a scene in Black Panther. I'm assuming you saw the movie.
Yes.
Okay. There's a scene in Black Panther where they do kind of like a James Bond, they show up to this place and they're, it's their interaction, their one interaction they have in the movie. with Ulysses S. Claw. And I was thinking about that as I was reading this book, that I'm wondering how much of this run inspired bits and pieces, obviously not the whole thing, but at least inspired bits and pieces of that movie, that scene in particular. Did you get that feeling too, or do you know something specific about that?
Yeah, I think a lot of what was great about the movie and what people gravitated to in the movie came from Priest's setup. Actually, not long after this, was it? And Chris, you may be able to correct me if I'm pronouncing it right. Reggie Hudlin.
Yeah.
He relaunched Black Panther. Didn't he? What he wrote, House Party or something like that.
Yeah, it was around the time of. It was around the time of Civil. Oh yeah, he did the Kid and Play movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he kind of
relaunched
relaunched it.
Kids, I think.
Yeah. But
they don't die; they multiply.
Yeah. He kind of relaunched it, and it irritated me because I got the first issue and I'm like, wait a minute, they canceled Priest, but they're doing this because it just seems like a different view. It had Everett Ross in a little bit more serious role, and I don't think Ross. I think he was around before this. I think he appeared in another series and Priest kind of picked him up. But because I remember reading an interview with him where when they offered it to him, he was like, wait, really? You guys are giving me the Black book? And because he didn't want to get, so I think that's part of why he put it from Everett Ross's point of view. But yeah, I think a lot of these concepts Christopher Priest started. I'm pretty sure, and I confess I didn't do my research, but I'm pretty sure this is where the Dora Milaje first appeared, who obviously were huge in the movie. You know, we'll talk about like the Dogs of War, the Wakandan Secret Police. I'm pretty sure that was his idea, and all this, you know, kind of Wakanda as a world power. That was my first exposure to it. Now, eventually, I went back and read like Essential Black Panther, and that was a story about a coup in Wakanda. So, you know, Black Panther being dethroned and having to fight back to regain his kingdom, that wasn't a Christopher Priest creation by itself, but yeah, I mean he did it as well as anybody I've ever seen.
So the first issue here comes out November 1st, 1998, and the summary goes: leaving behind unrest among refugees in Wakanda, the Black Panther comes to New York to investigate a scandal in the Tomorrow Fund. And our issue opens up, as you said before, with good old Everett K. Ross, pantsless, crouching on a toilet, wanting to shoot at a rat. And we get this big...
Buster.
Yes, Buster. We get this big block of a thought bubble. And basically you have Everett K. Ross' sort of narration of his take on the events of Black Panther coming to town. And the reason why Black Panther has come to town is that they had set up this charity called the Tomorrow Fund, and there was this little girl who was the poster child of said fund, and she was murdered, and so he was here to investigate that. And Everett K. Ross, who thought he was getting a cush job just following a diplomat around, finds himself up to his eyeballs in all kinds of Marvel nonsense. Let's talk about that for a second. This perspective, Chris, you know, where you're getting... I said this was like a Guy Ritchie film. The other thing that it was compared to, I saw in a lot of comments, was Tarantino's Pulp Fiction, where it's all out of order and there's breaks in the narrative, and it's very much this first-person perspective. What did you think of that take? Just to get us started here, what did you think of this story being told from Ross's perspective?
Oh, I found it to be very interesting. Tonally, it was similar to Priest's work in Quantum and Woody, where it did jump around a bit. You'd get weird flashbacks, not as recent as the story we were getting in Black Panther, of course, because it was a retelling of events that had just occurred, but tonally similar. But I did like the take where we were getting this other guy's point of view. We were getting a point of view character in Everett, where I found that, because I don't find Black Panther to be terribly interesting. I don't think he's. I mean, he keeps getting relaunched and relaunched and relaunched. I don't find him terribly interesting. This take made him interesting to me. I don't know that I would have stuck around if it was just Black Panther going around punching guys, rather than hearing the story of Black Panther going around punching guys. I thought this was very, very creative. It's something that I think a lot of other writers have picked up on over the years and haven't done it near as well as Priest did. But really well done. It was a way to amp up comedy with the action, juxtapose them. Just really well done. Really well done. It's you're getting something special out of this book.
I think applying a genre structure to establish characters is what makes for a winning combination. Like, with just giving Star Wars as an example, and specifically The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian's a Western. It's a Western that takes place in space. And it's a tried and true genre structure that's attractive to people. People like Westerns. Westerns are very popular. And so take the same structure, but put it out in space with these fun, colorful characters, and throw a puppy in there, which is Baby Yoda, and suddenly you've got this winning combination. I think the same thing here, Evan, where they took the noir mystery structure. I compared it to like a Guy Ritchie film, and if you've ever watched like The Gentleman or Lock, Stock, and I think he's Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, or Snatch, or any of those kinds of movies, the Sherlock Holmes movies with Robert Downey Jr., they're very snappy, they're very, fast cuts, they're all over the place, they're very dynamic, and they have a very noir sensibility about them. And I think, as Chris was saying, you take sort of a blah character in the Black Panther and put him within that structure, and suddenly you've got a very interesting story.
Yeah, like I said, Black Panther to me, in my reading, and it wasn't fair because I've gone back and read other things with them that were really good, but from my perspective, Black Panther's claim to fame was that he was African. I didn't know much else about the character. It's like, oh, he's the Avenger that's from Africa. And so what he did by putting him through Everett Ross's eyes is he said, oh, okay, what's special about Black Panther? What makes him different from the other Avengers? And, it was, I remember reading interviews years ago that he actually based Everett Ross on Chandler from Friends.
Yeah, I can see that.
And and later he would say that his take on Black Panther, because it's you don't get a lot, especially in these first 5 issues, of Black Panther's perspective so much as Ross explaining his perspective. So he said he actually wrote Black Panther like a heroic Ra's al Ghul, like he's 3 steps ahead of everybody. Mm-hmm. And you get that even more as it goes along. But I mean, he it's not an exact comparison, but especially under Priest, he kind of reminds me of the closest thing Marvel has to Batman. I mean, there's guys who are visually similar, but just a guy who's always in control and always underestimated. Sure. And it really just helps set a character apart that to me was just one of those guys in the Avengers.
Yeah, I can see that. He's just missing that sort of tortured element, psychologically tortured element of Batman. But I could see.
Wait, Batman has a tortured origin?
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard, but his parents were killed in an alley.
How didn't I know that?
By the way, I recently watched Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, and there's a scene with Banksy, I think the character's name. It's this character that Ben Affleck played, and I want to say Chasing Amy, and he's doing this whole monologue about, you all your life you grow up thinking you're Batman, and then you have a kid, and suddenly you realize from out of nowhere you're actually Thomas Wayne, or Batman's mom, whose name escapes me right now, and he looks right at the camera. I almost fell out of my chair.
Oh man, that's good.
Yes,
the sound was something going over my head there.
Have you not seen Batman v Superman?
No, hell no.
Mark, have you met Chris?
Yeah, I keep joking. Like, I'm gonna do, like, one day I'm just gonna snap and I'm gonna like do a podcast where like once a week I just make him watch a movie. Chris Sheehan reacts to this. All right, so as we move through the story here, first couple of pages, you know, it's kind of buckshot. It's Ross trying to explain this story, and his handler just, you know, banging her head against the wall, going, "You're all over the place. I can't make heads or tails of what you're talking about." And then, you know, she's like, go back to the beginning. And he keeps, God, I wish I had seen this like on film, because, you know, it's a shot of something. It's very cinematic. It's a shot of something, and then, you know, with no context. And then she's like, "No, Ross, go back even further." And so there's this great bit here where you've got this group of Hispanic gangsters, and Ross goes, "Office of the Chief of Protocol of U.S. State Department. Y'all be cool. Just chill. Don't start none. Won't be none." And I'm reading it I'm reading that in the dude's voice who plays Ross in Black Panther, who's also Bilbo in The Hobbit. And I'm laughing at myself because, like, I could totally see him trying to say that and sound like cool and tough, and it not going very well. Don't start none. Won't be none.
I still occasionally break out "Don't start none, won't be none" from this very issue.
And we're not even we're just now at the title page here, Black Panther in The Client. So, this first issue here, we see Black Panther, and how do you pronounce the girls? The Milaje Daja?
Dora Milaje?
Dora Milaje, right.
I don't know if that's right, but if you say it fast and confidently enough, people will think it is.
I'm going to go with that, Dora Milaje.
Mm-hmm.
So he's
I'm just going to call them the girls.
The Goyles.
The Goyles. The Boyds.
And so Black Panther in his finest tux, his finest suit, he's trying, you know, he's on the case. He has separated himself from Ross, and he's trying to figure out what happened, you know, with the murder of this girl. And so he needs to start questioning people. And of course, he runs afoul of these Hispanic gangsters, and he shocks them with this thing. And then he drags the Dora Milaje beat the crap out of the other guy's henchmen, and Black Panther says, "Take your best shot at me. I will offer no resistance. Then it'll be my turn," and it doesn't go very well for said essay. And so you're still getting more narration here from Everett as Black Panther beats the piss out of this guy. Okay, so finally he says, "A child was killed with the Tomorrow Fund. It is why I am here in America at a time when my homeland desperately needs me." And we'll get to that in a second. "You will help bring that child's killer to justice. You will agree to act as my servant, and I will agree to not carve your heart out like a roast." So this presentation of Black Panther, Evan, what did you think?
Oh, I wrote in my notes. I mean, Batman's got nothing on this guy. It reminds me. I know I keep going back to the Batman comparison, but that was how I described it to my friends who weren't reading it or weren't reading as many comics. I'm like, guys, this is Pulp Fiction meets Batman, but yeah, just this. Like I said, he went from background character to dude you do not want to mess with in the space of a few pages when I read this the first time.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, like I remember, you know, I knew Wakanda, vibranium, it was a technologically advanced African nation, but here we haven't even had a scene in Wakanda, and all the devices he's breaking out, you realize how technologically advanced it is.
He shows up originally in the Fantastic Four, right, Sheehan? You're my local comic book historian. He showed up originally in the Fantastic Four, and I don't believe he was presented necessarily as a guy with a bunch of gadgets and whatnot. I think he just had, a cat suit.
You know, it's been a long time since I read that. I think it was, like 52? Fantastic Four, 52, 53-ish?
Yeah.
48.
48? Okay, I thought that was Galactus.
No, you're right, 52.
Okay,
Why am I challenging Chris Sheehan with
I just thought that was
right.
Galactus' first
No,
appearance.
you are right, 52.
But I don't actually recall whether or not he was... and unfortunately, my Essential Fantastic Four is not behind me right now. It's in a box in the hallway, so I don't have access to it. Otherwise, I'd have grabbed it right now.
No, I never saw him with all those gadgets. Again, mine was limited, but they played up more the the athleticism, the enhanced reflexes and strength from eating the heart-shaped herb.
Heart-shaped,
yeah. I think you're legally required to say heart-shaped herb anytime you talk about Black Panther. Can't just be an herb. But yeah, this was this was a different look than I'd ever seen for him.
Before I move on, Chris, anything you want to add to our discussion here of how he's presented in this first issue as, you know, as Evan keeps saying, you know, kind of a Batman-like, and the sort of an emphasis on sort of gadgetry and, you know, and how brutal he is. I mean, this is a very serious, violent character that's being portrayed.
Oh, I would totally echo everything Evan said. I love the way he is very cold, very calculated, very cold and cool, right? It's like the way he pulls these guys out of the car and he just tells the girls, like, yeah, don't kill them. You know, that was his part.
We're in America, follow their rules, no maiming.
But this is a badass character. And the first time that I ever saw the Black Panther as someone that I would actually like raise an eyebrow and pay attention to. Because just like Evan said, he was the guy who would show up in Avengers every so often just to remind us he's from Africa. And that would be it. Or if they needed a change of scenery in the Avengers, like, hey, we got a friend over there, let's go. But here, I mean, he commands the spotlight, and very much like a brutal Batman with the gadgets and just the very cool demeanor. And you really don't know. I mean, I didn't know at the time what are Black Panther's limits. Like, will he kill? I didn't know. And when you read this scene, you don't know. You really don't know what he's going to do. And it's I think that's to the book's benefit, where this is a character who is very, very brutal, can be violent, and is very, very intelligent.
As we move on here, Everett tells the story of how the Black Panther came to be. We go through a little bit of a flashback. And this is also context for what's going on over in Wakanda now, which is that there's a refugee situation, and someone who they describe as sort of a Bishop Tutu type character has ascended to power, and that's right when Black Panther had to leave to go investigate the murder of this child and what's going on with this charity, and so things are in crazy upheaval here. I thought that was a good idea on Christopher Priest's part to add this other subplot that he doesn't directly get involved in because he's back in Brooklyn, but, you know, kind of turning away from Everett and Black Panther and kind of focusing on the goings on in Wakanda. I actually thought was a really good idea, and I thought it gave the comic book some layers and depth. Evan, what did you think?
Yeah. Trying to think where I wanted to go with that. The political stuff is really kind of one of Priest's trademarks. I know we were talking offline the other day about his Deathstroke series, which has a lot of this, and he really ratchets up kind of the political intrigue and things like that. Something that I just like I wouldn't have thought I'd be this excited about a Black Panther comic once I got hooked on this. I wouldn't have thought that I would be excited about geopolitical machinations and even some ripped from the headlines stuff. I think somewhere in the 20s he does a riff on the Elian Gonzalez situation involving Atlantis and Lemuria.
Nice.
And so it's just, I mean, you've got the he's setting it in a familiar place to get you interested. It's a Marvel street level villain type thing. Okay, and then he goes back to Wakanda and uses it. Uses all the potential that has to just add a whole other layer to this story that it all eventually ties together. But he's just really gives you a glimpse in that first issue of all the things Black Panther can be, as opposed to the guy who shows up in Avengers occasionally.
Chris, any thoughts on the, as Evan called it, the political intrigue of the book?
I love it as subplot because it feels like a comic book. Growing up when we did, comics would have subplots bubbling while the main story was going on in the foreground, because we knew that, once this story's over, there's another one that has to follow it. So I love it just for having the nuts and bolts and ascribing to the comics language, right? And doing the thing that comics are supposed to do. And it was also an intriguing story, and the fact that T'Challa wasn't able to be in two places at once really speaks to the fact that we got to get back there eventually, but he's got something that's more pressing now. It makes the story flow organically, and it makes it feel like this volume actually has legs, and we will find out that it does.
So, I'm just going to read this here. So, his handler says, "Save it for next time, Ross. Just tell me about him. When did he enter the picture?" And he says, "Well, that's what I was getting to. The night I was hunting Buster while the client was out roughing up drug dealers, someone knocked at the door." And so there Everett K. Ross is in his underwear and T-shirt and socks, and he opens the door, and there stands a fiery Mephisto.
At that point, I was hooked.
Yeah, and he's just, and I tell you, I love the art in this. The art, I'm going to end up saying this a lot tonight, but this looked so cinematic to me. Like, I could totally see this being acted out. So he's just sort of staring at Mephisto, fire and brimstone and all, and sort of looking at him deadpan. And then you see a close up of Everett's face. He goes, "I was very lucky," and he shuts the door. Slam, crash, and there's a couple of panels of him just sort of looking askance, then looking forward again, and then kind of taking a deep breath and going, "It's for you." And of course he's talking to Zuri.
Yeah.
That was hysterical. That's when I knew we were in for a real treat here. I was like, oh, that's funny as shit.
And it throws in this whole other element. I mean, we had the the street level mystery, then we have the political intrigue, what's going on back in Wakanda, and then out of nowhere, let's just throw in the devil. Let's get cosmic.
Because why shouldn't the devil be there?
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, at that point, I was already enjoying it, but I remember I got to that, and I'm like, I have to get the next issue of this.
All right, so issue number 2, the Black Panther and his entourage buy Chinese takeout, leading to the theft of Ross's ID. Later, Ross entertains Mephisto in a housing project, and Panther continues his investigation, and this is December 1st of 1998. So as our story begins here, we get a brief synopsis of what happened in the previous issue, and Everett K. Ross kind of tells us what's going on, and we have this big splash page of Mephisto sitting on his throne, and then we get this really great, like, almost like film strip of Ross sitting next to Mephisto, and them just kind of patiently waiting, and he's like, doo-doo-doo.
The skulls. Nice touch.
Yeah. This is my favorite line. They stole my pants. He's very much stuck on this. And then he looks over at Mephisto, and he's just trying, can't handle the quiet, and he's sort of trying to make small talk. He's like, "So, what do you do for free time? Go bowling?" And I'll tell you, as heady as Marvel can be, Chris, as over the top and cosmic, and like a lot of the Thanos stuff can just be so overwhelming. I think it's nice to kind of see a character like Mephisto just kind of hanging out with Ross, and and like, well, this is an odd situation. Like, you can feel the tension without it getting like overly overwrought. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure, for sure. Anytime you see a character on the scope and size of Mephisto in like a mundane, awkward situation, I mean, that's like a license to print money. I think back to I think it was a Justice League issue where like Darkseid is like sitting in Scott Free's house, just sitting on the couch with a glass of wine. And it's like, that's Darkseid. What the hell? He's sitting here watching TV on your sofa. Here we've got Mephisto, and it's just like you're stuck next to somebody waiting at the doctor's office. And it's you read the one magazine that's from 1998, and it's like, okay, now what? And you make the small talk, and it was just it was really, really well done. Priest just has a killer knack for dialogue. Sometimes the more awkward, the better. Ross here, I mean, if Ross doesn't win you over within even just the first issue, I mean, I don't know, this book probably isn't for you, but he is just, it's a great character, and it's a great little scene. And an actual decent use of the 9-panel. Was it a 9-panel grid or was it 12-panel grid?
It was a 9-panel grid. I was going to ask you about that because
Yeah.
I've heard your thoughts on the 9-panel grid before. So
Yeah, because there are certain writers who are bulletproof geniuses who like to abuse those 9-panel grids. Because Alan Moore did it back in the day, but here this is a real good use of it, and it really shows the the time lapse, and it shows that it's like, okay, even if it was like 5 seconds, it's like it feels like it's a long time because it's just so damn awkward. Really, really well done.
So we're back to Black Panther again, and he's very Batmanish. Car dives into the water here, and he's roughing up people. And one of his Dora Milaje, "We did not kill them, my lord. There were, however, many injuries." There's a lot of one-liners in this that cracked me up, and that was one of them. Okay, so back to Ross and good old Mephisto, who he offers him Pez. And so Mephisto says, you say they took your pants. Yes, they did. So I see. And he goes, "You're not, you aren't, no, at least not today." And then he says, "A gift to make you more comfortable while we wait your master's return." And he gifts him a pair of pants, the devil's pants. Look, I'm all for, like, sight gags and stuff. And the fact that Christopher Priest went all in on the devil's pants, because this becomes a running gag throughout the rest of the book, cracked me the hell up. One of the things that happens is, like, he tries taking them off and they just keep reappearing, and so there's like a pile of pants that he's made, and he just keeps getting pants back on his legs again. I'm like, that's hysterical.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow he even manages in the later issues to have, actual drama and tension with all this, in spite of the fact that there's all those laugh out loud moments.
Yes.
Which is one thing I really liked about the series, because you never lost the comedy, but there are some really dark and serious moments in this and in later issues too.
This is another really funny bit where he drives up to the airport to pick up what he thinks is just going to be, T'Challa and maybe an attaché of some sort, or bodyguard or something. So he thinks, all right, my two-seater Miata should be fine. It's just like Coming to America. Chris, that's a movie starring Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall, where they're Africans and they show up to Queens.
Never
So
saw
they come
it.
to
but I've heard
America.
about it.
Yeah, there's going to be a sequel soon.
What?
Yeah. So anyway, so he pulls up and he's like, yeah,
It's like
he's
50
like on the phone. He's like, yeah, they brought everybody. I died, Evan. I fucking died. I read that, and he's like, "Elaine, change of plans." He brought, like, everybody.
Oh yeah, it was. I hadn't. This is one I've gone back and reread a few times, but it had been a while, and yeah, the whole thing is just a riot. And then the drive from the airport when T'Challa says, "Of course we can't insult you. We'll ride in your car." And he's like, "Oh my gosh, I can just hear the weird sound from the Zapruder film." The whole time
Back into the left. Back into the left.
And so we get a little bit more of T'Challa and his stepmother, I think she was.
Yes.
We get a little bit of Zuri. So this is all stuff that led up to the things that happened in the first issue. This is from right when he got to New York. And so he's continuing to tell the story, and this is all very interesting. He gets stuck with Zuri, which, they get Chinese food, and this is where they run into the Hispanic mob that we met in the first issue, and this is the "Don't Start None, Won't Be None." And the lead here steals Ross's ID and just, like, bites it with his mouth. And then another cop shows up. Let me ask you, does this cop, I think his name is Torque, does he show up in later issues, guys?
He does, and he's an established character. I think he showed up in some Spider-Man issues for a while, didn't he, Chris?
I don't remember. Remember. I'm sure I did know it
before this. Like, Torque was actually the character I recognized besides Black Panther in reading this the first time through.
And so we see this whole bit in the club where Ross is trying to get his ID back, and he ends up in a mud wrestling pit with the girls, and in comes Zuri. And that's where we get the infamous picture of them being arrested and having with the nameplates and everything. By the way, they don't take two at the same time. They wouldn't be two girls in one frame. Just throw that out there. So back to Everett and Mephisto. Mephisto took the Pez, by the way, which I didn't notice the first time I read this.
I missed that too.
Yeah, it's really funny. So anyway, Black Panther. Back to Black Panther now, and back to the present part of the story. He goes and he questions yet another person, and that's about where the issue ends. So I'll go to you first, Evan. What did you think of the second issue?
Oh, it just the Devil's Pants. If I didn't love it already, the Devil's Pants just cemented it. The crowd shot, the ride from the airport, all of that was just fantastic. And the funny thing is, I know we've talked on here. I know I've heard Chris talk about decompression in comics, but this pretty much explained everything that we started with in the first issue. Nowadays I would think it would be issue 6 before we learned how Ross lost his pants or anything like that. But this really filled in all our blanks and then set us up to move forward. Again, we meet a Chibe, or however you say it, at the end of it, and the last scene we get is Ross, as if things weren't bad enough, just slamming his head on the table, going, "Well, that's where the fun starts."
What'd you think of this issue, Chris? Overall,
everything that Evan said there. Trading your soul for a pair of pants is hilarious, and the fact that he has second thoughts about it and tries to strip himself of the pants over and over and over again was great. The ride home from the airport was also great. I also love this feels like we were talking about Marvel being kind of experimental at this time here. There's a whole scene of the Black Panther going to get Chinese food and arguing with his handler about how they're going to get Chinese food and whether or not they have a credit card and stuff. These mundane things that we didn't usually see. And the fact that sort of thing was included was hilarious. And just the fact that they show it but don't draw too much attention to it. It's not like hey, look at this is funny. It's just funny. Like, they come out of the Chinese place and Zuri is holding like 15 bags. But they don't zoom in on him. It's just like he's there holding the bags. And it's hilarious because you're not being drawn to look at it like, hey guys, here's the joke, here's the punchline, laugh at it. It's just there, and it's funny. It's a really good issue.
All right, so issue number 3, which came out. This one was a bit of a misdirection for me, because the cover is him fighting the Fantastic Four, which I believe is only referenced in a flashback or whatever. Right. They're not actually in the issue. No. This is January 1st, 1999. Original Sin is the name. And we get started with who Achebe is. As Everett is telling his handler this story, he refers to him as Bob the African Farmer. And I can't remember what movie I saw this in, but it was a very similar thing where, a man of low caste is accosted and molested by this outside force, and he goes and he seeks revenge on them, and he kills everyone in their family. And I can't remember if it was Desperado or what the hell movie I saw this in, but it was a very similar thing where the legend of so-and-so started off as he was a normal person who got pushed too far and too much taken from him, and he went crazy and just killed everybody. Anyone that that these villains had ever touched, and anyone in their family, everyone dead. And so
is that a little Kaiser Soze?
Yeah, that's the one. Thank you. That would have bothered me all night. Yes, The Usual Suspects, Kaiser Soze. Chris, Kaiser Soze is a character in a movie called The Usual Suspects. That is about what was it? Evan, was some sort of robbery that went bad.
It's 5 career criminals wind up in a lineup together, and they and it was like one of the big classic mysteries. The guy
Is
who
Guy
directed
Ritchie
it
or
went on-
Lionel Richie in it?
No, this is not a Guy Ritchie movie.
Neither of the
this
Ritchies?
this was Bryan Singer, who went on to make many X-Men movies.
Yes, and then got himself in Me Too trouble, or something along those lines. But yeah, The Usual Suspects was a big hit movie in its time, and there's a whole bit there with Kevin Spacey where at the end you think either you're led to believe that he either made the entire story up by looking at shit in the cop's office, or it's all true, and either way he made the cop believe that he was somebody that he wasn't, and he got away with it. But anyway, in the middle of the movie they tell you the story of Kaiser Sose, and it was, as I just said, very similar to Achebe here in this story. That's why I brought that up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's all very interesting. I know, Chris. We're gonna make you watch. Gonna make you watch The Usual Suspects when we're done here.
Oh, no, I get this awful taste in the back of my mouth. What is that? Ugh.
So anyway, so here's where we meet Achebe, and he is described. He is the Reverend Dr. Michael Ibn Al-Hajj Achebe, Ph.D., Yale Law, with multiple degrees, and blah, blah, yakety schmackety. And so we're still getting some kind of flashback, sort of, getting up to date as to what's going on in Wakanda. There's some bits here of them two sort of talking and needling one another. So let me stop there. Evan, this stuff here with Achebe and Black Panther, what did you think?
Definitely, at least for me, not the standard villain you expect. I mean, here's a guy who is hanging out in a refugee camp who shouldn't be a threat to the Black Panther that we've had established over 2.5 issues. Even if he was this murderer of mythical proportions, he seems like this annoying little guy. Who just, even Lex Luthor had no powers, but he was rich and, mega genius and stuff like that. And here's just this annoying, sarcastic guy with big ears and yellow teeth. And, after all the stuff you've seen Black Panther do, this guy shouldn't be a problem. But, that's another aspect of the character is, is a superhero. He's first rate, but he's got, this whole nation to worry about. Which obviously kind of causes him a problem here. And that's one thing they do. That's a kind of a recurring theme with Black Panther is he's the king of this nation, and yet he's also a superhero getting involved in all kinds of stuff. And why does he do that? And, Ross talks about it in here, like he wasn't going to let somebody else investigate this child being killed because he felt responsible. And so, he's kind of torn between the duty to his country and his duty, as, I guess, like this citizen of the world who just believes that what's right is right, regardless of the politics.
So what about you? What did you think of the nutty, evil Bishop Tutu, as he's called by the handler, Chris?
I didn't think he was all that great. And for the first time in reading this, and like kind of the only time in reading this, I kind of glazed over a little bit. I really wasn't too enthralled with this character, and was just hoping to get back to the other stuff.
So, Everett starts talking about a flashback from his own life where he got beat up by a girl.
Mm-hmm.
And then he starts telling the story of what happened with the murdered girl. He says the Wakandan consulate once bankrolled a local children's charity called the Tomorrow Fund. The client made publicity photos with the TF's poster child, who years later was found dead in an alley. And the TF, a squeaky clean local self-help group run by a devout church lady, became a bank for local drug dealers and other lowlifes like you do. All of which was designed to appeal to the client's sense of honor, drawing him out of Wakanda so our friend Bob Achebe could change addresses from the refugee camp to the king's palace. So this whole thing with this girl was arranged by Achebe, as near as I can tell, so that T'Challa would get drawn away from Wakanda, and then he could make his move. Mm-hmm. And the next thing we see is T'Challa lighting a guy on fire, and that guy running out the door. It's pretty brutal.
Yeah, it coming.
So we have more of Black Panther beating on this guy. They both dive out a window, and Everett's talking. And this is for the first time we Everett. I don't know this part of the comic. We always talk about there has to be some sort of action, and then this is the action part of the comic. That the way Everett's describing it, I thought was kind of weird here, Chris. I don't know. This seemed bizarre to me.
Where he's kind of unreliable about it, where he's well, I really wasn't there, but I'm assuming this is the way it went down. I just thought that was part and parcel with his character. He's telling the story, he's trying to make it as fantastical as he can, and he wasn't there, and he only assumed what happened. I think if I read it right, which could be completely wrong. I've read a lot of things today, but it felt like just him taking his best stab at it.
He spends a lot of time talking about the vibranium in the suit. Which, you talk about your eyes glazing over. This is where I was like, oh, who cares?
Yeah, landing without a sound, yeah.
It's just I don't care about his suit. I don't care what makes it work. I just know that it works.
Yeah, that's all we need to know.
So, moving through the rest of this issue here, we get another flashback to when Black Panther was a kid. This is all over the place, Evan. What the hell, man?
Well, this is kind of an intentional forced flashback by Mephisto that also gives you an idea about the Black Panther's past. I mean, pretty sure I knew a little bit about him because of a Marvel role-playing game supplement I had, and I met Claw in the pages of Fantastic Four, so I knew about that connection. But it kind of goes through his life story there, and you almost feel like it's just another device, replaying his origin. And I didn't know if you noticed, Mark, on the page where he's fighting the Fantastic Four. Mm-hmm. In the three panels above that, where it's his father's funeral, and then it shows him, in the embrace of a blonde girl in college. Mm-hmm. Did you recognize the blonde girl?
Not a clue.
You'll find out later. It becomes an important point in future volumes. That's Nikki, Everett's boss and girlfriend.
Oh, really? Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, then we introduce Monica Lynn, who was a past love interest and becomes important later, and where at that point T'Challa's lost all sense of reality, and he's actually making out with one of the Dora Milaje, which really comes back to bite him later in the series.
Oh wow! Okay, cool. Right, that's the next part that happens here. He sort of wakes up from this hallucination, and he's kissing one of his child brides.
Not quite legal.
Yeah, and then he see that he's being pursued by the Dogs of War, and that's where that issue ends. So before we move on to issue number 4, Chris, anything about issue number 3 you want to talk about?
Not really. I mean, it filled space. We got to do a quick and dirty on the origin. We got to introduce our threat. It was a what's the word I'm trying to think of here? It was a workman. Workman type story here. Got us where we need to go.
Yeah. I find that as from going through this again, when I was reading it, and I didn't
utilitarian. That's the word I'm looking for.
When I was reading it, I didn't know what was going to happen next. I was enjoying it, but sort of retelling this, I was like, "This is a little unwieldy, Evan, to try to get across and explain." I feel like if I had just said, "Okay, here's what happens in the story," first of all, I'd have been done in 3 or 4 sentences. It's not like that in lengthy of a story. It's not that complex.
Yeah,
but because
it doesn't have the moments that the first two had, for sure. Like Chris said, it does the job, but there's not. We were picking out quotes and moments from the first 2 issues, and this one, had more of a job to do and didn't have as many memorable moments.
Yeah, for sure. All right, issue number 4. We open with the Dogs of War pursuing Black Panther, like Batman, up the side of a building. And we have that contrasted with Achebe and his pirate dog with the eye patch.
I'm used to people abusing, doing terrible things in the name of religion, unfortunately. But when he holds up the dog, that's just a bridge too far.
Okay. And so we open up with a bit of action here. Black Panther taking on the 2 Dogs of War. Now, who are the Dogs of War, Evan? Anything in particular that people should know about?
As far as I know, this was last issue technically was their first appearance. They are the secret police of Wakanda. We'll find out a little bit more about them in this issue. But as someone who has always been a sucker for alternate versions of characters, the white Black Panthers immediately appealed to me. Like Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, they're okay. Give me War Machine, Thunderstrike, and U.S. Agent.
There you go. I was waiting for the U.S. Agent callback. All right, so he finally defeats them. He questions them. God, this goes on for a while. And then, so then we finally switch over to Torque, who's making fish sticks in his apartment. And
in a toaster.
Which is kind of weird.
And I did Google Torque. He did appear in some Falcon and issues of Spider-Man before this. So, and it might have even been... Now I'm really reaching, so someone can Google this and see what an idiot I am, but it might have even been some issues of Spider-Man that Priest wrote.
Okay.
Or edited, for sure.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
All right, so Richmond knocks on Torque's door, and he says, "My name is Richmond. I waive my right to counsel. Kill Jamie Robbins. Arrest me, please." And Torque says, "Mr. Panther, we're going to have to talk." So we're back to Everett again, and this was yet another bit that I cracked up with, because he's not trying to tell her the next part of this story. He is looking for anything to distract him. And there's this panel here where he's like, "How about Naked Banjo?"
Naked Banjo.
I was like, man after my own heart. And just like a woman, she's not having it. She's like, "Hey, focus. Damn it." So we're back to Mephisto again. And Mephisto says, "I am a collector, friend Ross. I am master of a realm populated by only myself, and the lost souls who willingly follow me." And so Mephisto is here for Black Panther's soul. That's why he showed up. After all of this, so this story takes kind of a hard right turn. Because first we were investigating a murder, which I was really into. Then, this whole second half of the story here is Mephisto waiting around for Black Panther to show up so he can take his soul. And again, I've seen this somewhere else where it was like, "You want my soul? You can have all of it." And it's, and it's too much for him to consume, and it ends up becoming a problem for Mephisto. We get another flashback here with Everett Ross. And finally, the Black Panther shows up, and hey, it's the punchy parts. He punches Mephisto dead in the face.
And rips out his heart.
Yep, rips out his heart. And that is the end of that issue. So, before we move on here, Evan, anything about issue number 4?
Oh, just the part where the Panther finally busts in. I was a little thrown by the flashback to Ross. I'm like, I guess this is interesting about his character, but let's get back to the superheroes. But yeah, where the Black Panther busts in, and Ross, who has been, under the circumstances, pantsless and sitting with the devil, pretty cool and controlled, he immediately jumps on the couch. Kill him! You want me to call the Avengers? And Black Panther goes, "Why?" Just in case you weren't sure that Black Panther is awesome. And he goes over and punches the devil.
All right, so we begin. So this whole last issue here, we're up to issue number 5, the glorious conclusion. Black Panther and Everett K. Ross go to hell, and of course they're fighting visages of other characters. Some form or other of Achebe is there. And this goes on and on. So, we have Everett still telling this story and still having difficulties with it. Yeah, this all leads up to basically, as I said before, Black Panther. Basically, you want my soul, you can have it, and and it being overwhelming for Mephisto. And Mephisto's like, never mind.
Yep.
So interesting way to there's a lot that leads up to it, but it's all prologue. There's young T'Challa who steals Claw's machine and shoots it at him and shatters his hand and whatnot. So Chris, what did you think of this issue?
I thought it was pretty good. A nice way to tie up at least the Mephisto story, because I mean, how else? You can't beat the devil; you have to outsmart him, and so T'Challa kind of did here. It's just like you said here. You want my soul? I'm bonded with the Panther, so you're getting all of this, and it's like, I'm full. Sorry, but it was.
Yeah, I half
okay.
expected him to go. This time we didn't forget the gravy.
just punching his chest, just let it go. But it was a smart way to do it. Definitely, it feels very, very priesty. It's very clever. I didn't see it coming, even though I read this several times. I forgot how this all wrapped up, so it was a nice surprise, and it didn't feel like a cop out. The hell stuff, I mean. Anytime superheroes go to hell, it's going to be a slog, and it kind of was here. No matter how talented the writer is, there's only so much you can do. And then we wind up with our little tease for what's to come, and that was pretty good too. It was a little predictable, but it was neat nonetheless.
All right, I'm going to give you the last word here on issue number 5. Give me your thoughts, your notes, whatever you got there.
First of all, like I said, I picked up the first issue solely because of Mark Teixeira's art, and stayed for Christopher Priest. So I was a little disappointed. I mean, the art's awesome in issue 5, but I was a little disappointed they had a guest artist, and I forget Teixeira. I think he did some more issues, but not many. And by the time it went out from under the Marvel Knights label, he was off the book.
Yeah.
Which I was disappointed about. Now, the guy that followed him, Sal Velluto, I think, did a lot of it. Whose art, I mean, he's a good artist. It wasn't necessarily to my taste, but at that point, I was here for Christopher Priest's art, and it could have been stick figures, and I would have. I mean, for Christopher Priest's writing, and it could have been stick figures, and I would have been all over it still. So that was I was like, oh, wait a minute, we're not going to get this ridiculously awesome painted, stylized art every issue. But I still enjoyed it. I can't remember how I initially thought about the gag with Zuri chewing on Mephisto's heart. 40-year-old Evan thought it was a little gross. Thought it was a bit much. But I did like, and this is something that, without spoiling too much, Mark, because you ought to just read the whole run in all your spare time. But there's a part where he's talking about all the stuff that T'Challa went through, and he said maybe he felt it was his obligation to provide a full report. Maybe he trusts us to be discreet. Maybe he thinks I'm his friend, and that's another place where it reminded me of the Tim Burton Batman, because I always thought it was ridiculous that after one date he told Vicky Vale he was Batman, and I'm like, why would T'Challa think this ridiculous government flunky is his friend after only interacting with him for a little bit? But that's another thing that comes up later in the series, is T'Challa reveals exactly why he trusts Ross as much as he does. But I won't spoil that for you. But so that is setting up something later. And I thought it was a good way to retell the origin in the story. A lot of times in comics, and I know Chris knows this from the movies, They retell the origin so many times.
Gotta bite him with the spider, damn it. The spider's gotta bite him.
So I thought that was a good way to do it in story and familiarize us with, with the Panther's origin and more of the details of it without, just retelling it or, it being a filler issue, that kind of thing. One thing that surprised me, I talk about how much I love this story and this run. I totally forgot the thing about Achibe apparently being in league with Black Panther's stepmom, and I was like, wait a minute, who was behind it all? I think I remember. But if I have to go back and read more of these to refresh my memory, well, I guess I'll just have to make myself somehow.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you. I think this is worth continuing to read on, either the other trades that were compiled or just reading them issue by issue. I enjoyed this, and like I said, it kind of came alive to me as I was reading it. As we've been talking about it tonight, I go back to it's kind of hard for me to walk through this story again. Like it was weird. It was easier for me to read through the story than it was for me to talk about it. Because I was enjoying what I was reading, and then as I was going back and we're having this discussion, I was like, why am I tripping over all of this so much? And that's because it's the narrative is so all over the place and out of order, and so it makes it a little difficult to kind of go through it linearly in terms of discussion, because things are just all over the place, if that makes any degree of sense. But like I said, I liked it, and I would be interested in what all else he did with this series. I'd also want to ask you guys, you brought up Quantum and Woody. What else would be recommended reading from Christopher Priest?
You wanna start, Evan?
Oh no, you go ahead.
His Deadpool run is a lot of fun. He came in right after Joe Kelly, who kind of reinvented the character from the sort of one-note Liefeld character, made him actually funny and made him actually tragic. And Christopher Priest came in and started his run basically saying that by basically having Deadpool move into a trailer park that featured all of the... Because there's a thing called the Priest Curse. Anytime Priest would get on a book, it would be canceled. So he had Deadpool move into this trailer park full of all characters that he had written that got canceled. And it was pretty funny. His run was very good. There. Evan mentioned the Deathstroke run, which I didn't dig more because I didn't dig what DC was doing with the stuff there more than anything concerning Priest himself. Priest wrote a Justice League Task Force back in the 90s. Yeah, which was okay. He introduced a character called Triumph.
Yes.
Who came out of Zero Hour as one of the founding members of the Justice League that everyone forgot about. So that was a pretty funny one. It led to I think a 3 or 4 issue miniseries, which wasn't that great, but the character idea is pretty cool. He recently did a run on Justice League over at DC, which a lot of his go-tos are maybe a little bit played out at this point. It doesn't look quite so Frasier-y in these issues, but the sitcom Frasier, where it will go to that black screen with just white writing on it.
Yep.
That's a lot of Priest will do that a lot. There'll just be a black panel with writing in it, kind of like an interstitial between scene shifts in an episode of Frasier. Reading that in 2020 in an issue of Justice League, it's like, okay, we're kind of done with this. Maybe not so much anymore. What else did he do? He did some stuff for Valiant. What else did he do? He did a Quantum and Woody miniseries in probably 2013, 2014, which was following up on his original run, which was a lot better than the current run that they were doing at the time because that was garbage. Am I leaving anything out here?
The one that I followed to, I followed him over to the Crew, which had a bunch of supporting characters from Black Panther and War Machine, where the only thing he had left of his armor was the helmet that he used as a pencil holder. and that was similar to a lot of the tone, but just it didn't quite hit the level that Black Panther was on. And then he did
that Captain America and
Captain
Falcon.
America and Falcon, yeah,
with Bart Sears on.
Yes,
yeah, I didn't care for that.
I don't. The main thing I remember from that is that it was right in the middle of Avengers Disassembled, and Captain America was making out with the Scarlet Witch for no reason, which gets even weirder when you try to figure out exactly how young she's supposed to be. Although I did, there was a scene, since we're talking movies, and Chris likes them so much, there was a scene in Civil War where Cap and Wanda were chatting, and I'm like, are they going to go the Cap Wanda romance route? But they didn't. Yeah, it's probably just as well. But so yeah, those were. I got excited when you mentioned Justice League Task Force, because that was one of my first comics that I went back and got the whole run. Like I was right in the middle of loving Black Panther, and I went to a comic convention in Columbus, and I got probably 2/3 of his run on Justice League Task Force, and then pieced it together at different shows and bargain bins a while. So that was like one of my first, other than that time, I bought every issue of X-Force with my birthday money. When I first jumped into the X-Men, that was like one of my first, filling in a series that I'd missed the first time through.
Oh, another thing he did back when he was James Owsley, he did some Green Lantern work. He did the Green Lantern features, the first Green Lantern features in Action Comics Weekly, which started off brutally with the death of Katma Tui. Star Sapphire tears her apart basically in her apartment, and that was James Owsley as well. He had Green Lantern Hal Jordan show up on the Oprah Winfrey Show, which was an interesting story. Also had it so I don't remember if this was him or if this was into the Peter David run there, but did a little bit of finagling with Hal Jordan's origin to make it so the Guardians of the Universe kind of took the fear out of his brain. Like, he wasn't a fearless guy. They made him fearless because they needed him to be fearless. So they kind of did a little mystical lobotomy on him. That didn't stick. But it was an interesting little beat in the story, and something I always go back to. And Priest did come back to finish the Green Lantern arc on Action Comics Weekly, where he introduced one of the greatest characters that you've never heard of, Malvolio. Malvolio is a fantastic character who the story Emerald Twilight, where Hal Jordan goes nuts, you could actually write yourself out of it just by referencing Malvolio. And they didn't do it, because that story ended with Malvolio destroying Hal Jordan's ring in a far-off sector, not even a registered sector of the universe. And so Hal had to beat him and take Malvolio's ring in order to get back to Earth. So when he went crazy, he was actually wearing Malvolio's ring, and they never mentioned it. So that's that.
Okay.
He also, in his role as I just remembered, in his role when he was an editor at Marvel as Jim Owsley, was responsible for the official Marvel No Prize book, which was one of my favorite finds at a convention. I got it out of a $1 bin. It's the cover is Stan Lee upside down, dressed as Dr. Doom, and it's just a collection of mistakes and errors from Marvel Comics over the years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've got half an article written on that right now. I just haven't finished it. And he was also responsible for my favorite Spider-Man story ever as an editor, not as the writer, The Death of Jean DeWolf.
And Peter David wrote that, right?
Peter David wrote that.
Oh, man. Peter David and Christopher Priest together.
Can't beat it.
It's too good.
Okay. Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate you coming on to talk about this book. Evan, you feel like you got out what you needed to say? I know you've been wanting to talk about this book for a while.
Oh, yeah. I think so. And pencil me in when you do Enemy of the State, the follow-up.
I will. All right. So it's
in like 2025 or wherever. I know you're scheduled out.
Yeah, I was going to say, it took 2 years to get this one done, so sure.
But hey, the timing worked out because they just announced that World of Wakanda TV show this week.
That's right. So, there's going to have to be some synergy there.
There you go.
So we might not have to wait 5 years to read another good book?
Rumble, young man, rumble. I want to say, I'm trying to figure out when the next actual, assuming it actually stays on the calendar where they scheduled it, when the next Black Panther movie is, which who knows what they're doing with that.
It's going to be Shuri.
Yeah. Okay, so the next Black Panther movie actually comes out July of 2022, and I think I have scheduled for that one, Rise of the Black Panther, issues 1 through 6 by, how do I pronounce this guy? Evan Narcisse?
I'm not familiar with that one.
Sheehan, Evan Narcisse?
Not a clue.
No, you brought up like a Narcisse on the Juggernaut thing that you did.
Fabian Nicieza?
That's the one.
It starts with an N and ends with a vowel. They're practically
Close
the same
enough.
person.
And there's an Evan on the show right now. And so there you go.
Yeah. It all
Fabian
connects.
not so Nicieza.
That's right. That's what you said, not the guy I'm currently... Okay. So have either of you ever heard of this Rise of the Black Panther book that got recommended to me? Just out of curiosity.
When's it from?
It just said it's by Evan Narcisse and Ta-Nehisi
Coates.
Ta-Nehisi
Yeah.
Coates.
Yeah, and it says issues
Okay.
1 through 6. That's all I put in my notes for this.
Okay, now that might be... I don't know if that was Coates' first issue of Black Panther, or... I'm trying to see when Chadwick Boseman died, Comixology made, like, every Black Panther comic they had free. So I downloaded a ton of Black Panther comics on there, and I'm trying to remember if that was...
Okay, so
I'm looking through it here, but...
I just did a quick Marvel Google search here, and it says Rise of the Black Panther, Volume 1, number 1, and it writer Evan Narcisse, penciler Paul Renaud, and this came out March of 2018, released January 3rd, 2018.
Okay, so it's probably, if I had to guess, and I could be totally wrong, it was like tying into Ta-Nehisi Coates' version of Black Panther. Maybe, I'm guessing it went back and looked at his origin. That sounds familiar to me.
Somebody recommended this to me, and that's how I ended up. I feel like that's how I ended up getting on the schedule. But yes, either way, we will do, and we will do another Christopher Priest book. We'll do Enemy of the State at some point. All right, what do you got going on? Yes, yeah. What do you got going on in your world, Evan?
Well, I am. I still am writing about comics for the Parkersburg News and Sentinel. Occasionally, when a movie or TV show comes out, I explain to people where they actually came from, and things like that. Just did one on Vision and Scarlet Witch. And I think my next one is going to be for Valentine's Day, comic book characters you didn't know dated.
Perfect.
Like the Wasp and Magneto.
Oh, I did not know that they dated. I was thinking more of Peter Parker and Mockingbird.
Oh yeah, that's a good one too. Hey, thanks. I'm going to put that one on the list.
Woohoo! What do you got going on, Mr. Sheehan?
Oh, a lot of stuff. Still doing X-Laps, but I think at this point you might be able to change the name of the show to Chris Complains About the X-Men a Lot for a half hour every day.
I liked your Juggernaut show. That got me interested in that book.
Oh, that's all. Yeah, that show actually got a lot of favorable feedback there. People want me to continue talking about the Juggernaut series. So once I'm out of yes, indeed, and once I'm out of this 22-part story that we're dealing with, then we'll get to Juggernaut again. But right now I'm in the middle of the X of Swords crossover, which we at the show call X of Tens because they like to make X's into tens nowadays because I think it makes everybody feel like they're a lot smarter. So I think it's actually 10 of Swords referring to a tarot card. But X of Swords, 22 parts. I'm at part 11, so we got a lot more to go, and it is very, very heavily padded, and it's not the best of times right now for the program. But I'm optimistic that things will get better once this is out of the way.
As you
also,
do X-Lapse, do you find yourself wanting to strangle whoever told you to go back to X-Men?
the person who told me to go back to X-Men was me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I self-flagellate all the time.
Beating himself in the corner. Stupid, stupid, stupid.
Jonathan Hickman, God damn it! You know, it's been a really fun project, but it does have a tendency of going kind of up its own butt often. It's very, very proud of itself, and it's not afraid to let you know. But I'm happy to be back with the X books here, and people seem to enjoy it, so it's a good thing.
I'm having a blast with it.
I'm sure glad. I'm happy that you're actually you're up to date now, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So I get to,
and if Marvel Unlimited keeps churning them out, I can stay up to date.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, so I can get your almost real-time thoughts. That's great.
There you go.
There's also chrisisoninfiniteearths.com, where there's a new post every single day for over 5 years now. What else? What else is there? Not a whole lot. Just a lot of talk about DC Comics mostly, and now a lot of X-Men stuff. And you could find me on Twitter at Ace Comics. So chrisandreggie.com. chrisandreggie.podbean.com, chrisisoninfiniteearths.com, and Ace Comics on Twitter. I give these plugs out every single day, and I never get them right.
We'll have
That's
Chris.
okay. I forgot to give the website where you can read my stuff.
There you go. Do it.
.com. So, yeah.
We'll have Chris back on the show again in 2 and 3 weeks. He'll be back for Scene of the Crime by Ed Brubaker, and then he'll be back for the Rough and Ready show, which is the book I picked out to synergize with the Tom and Jerry. With the Tom and Jerry. You shut up. With the Tom and Jerry movie. Yeah.
Is it a Tom and Jerry movie?
Yes.
When was the last time anybody's thought about Tom and Jerry?
I saw the preview for the movie the other day.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yep. It'll be streaming and in theaters on the same day on HBO Max and in your local Metroplex. See, you can go out and see it in the theaters if you're not on lockdown.
Oh man, when is the Woody Woodpecker movie going to come out?
That already happened a long time ago.
Yeah, there already was a Woody Woodpecker movie, but I'm sure there'll be another one. By the way,
Baby Huey. Is there going to be a Baby Huey movie?
Can I ask, has anyone read this Popeye book from IDW that's out? I saw somebody posted a cover on Twitter yesterday, and I was like, I now need to find a reason to cover Popeye because I'm interested in what this is.
I have not read it, but I did have a guy that I worked with who we used to debate back and forth whether Popeye is technically a superhero.
Okay. Chris, have you seen this yet? Have you seen this IDW Popeye book?
I've seen it. I've never read it.
Okay.
But I will if you want me to, because that sounds a little bit more interesting than a lot of the stuff.
Oh, you might have to. I might have to make you watch the Robin Williams movie with Shelley Duvall, and then read
There's
the
a
book.
Popeye movie?
There is a Popeye movie with Robin Williams. Yes. And Shelley Duvall.
Doubtfire is Popeye?
Yeah, before he was Mrs. Doubtfire and before Shelley Duvall went nuts.
She actually looks a lot like Olive Oil, so I guess
Yeah. I don't
she's
think,
actually a little creepier than Olive Oil.
I was going to say, I don't think there's ever been a better casting choice than Shelley Duvall as Popeye. All right.
J.K. Simmons is J. Jonah Jameson.
Sorry, Olive Oil is what I meant, but yes, that too. All right. When your Black Panther podcast goes into a ditch because you're talking about Popeye, it's time to call an end to it. So go ahead and check out last week's source material live. We did All Hell Megatron, myself and Cole Marentet. Myself and Robert Winfrey reviewed Outside the Wire. I wouldn't call it so much as a review as it was a filleting. Hated that movie. The Podsman and I reviewed the Royal Rumble. Jesse Starcher and Sean Comer and I reviewed Weezer, OK Human. And then Chris Bailey and I reviewed AEW Beach Break, which we tried to get Chris Sheehan to come on the review and talk about the nuptials, and he took one look at Orange Cassidy and noped out.
Yep. I remembered why I don't watch that stuff.
Thank you guys for coming on Source Material Live. For Chris Sheehan and Evan Bevins, I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and behave.